Hi there, I'm John Hartledge. Welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to go to the northwest of Spain. We're going to talk about the Faustino 5, so the Roman numeral, of course. So the Faustino 5 Reserva Rioja. I love how the J in Spanish becomes an H when you pronounce it in English. The Faustino 5 Reserva Rioja. Just love to say it. Let's chat wine. So, Bodegas Faustino, one of the most esteemed and established names in Spanish wine. This wine's actually a Reserva. So, Reserva in Spain means you have to age for a certain amount of time in oak. So in this case, they've aged for 18 months in American oak. That's also an interesting aspect. Of course, French oak is very popular. French oak is very expensive, but it's very interesting how some of the American coopers, often cooperage is wine barrel production, but the coopers have been able to get American oak actually used in some international markets. Yugoslavian wood is amazing wood. There's Eastern European wood that's very popular. Even in Italy, they won't always use French oak for even some of their best wines. French oak is very expensive. Of course, one of the oldest traditions of wood cooperage. But I love the American oak. I've tasted it on a number of wines. There's a really kind of nice little cedary, kind of earthy kind of aspect that it adds to the flavor profile. But Faustino this particular wine is a Reserva. Now they have a number of wines. They have a Faustino 1, a Faustino 3, a Faustino 5, a Faustino 7. All done in Roman numerals. As the number gets bigger, the wine is actually less expensive. So that the smaller that number is just like you're getting closer to the big source. So as a proprietary nomenclature, if you will, naming their wines, they're using the closer to the source as the most expensive. But this Reserva is also known as a DOCA. What you'll hear in Italian wine terms is DOCG. It's the same kind of designate from the government. This is DOCA, Spanish. And what that means, it's one of these particular wineries and these villages that's considered the most traditional and, if you will, the benchmark for that particular wine. And again, European, in most cases, is named by the chateau or the area. So you'll refer to a wine as Rioja. Well, Rioja is actually the village and that area of northwestern Spain, which is a great area for particular grapes. And those grapes connected to those areas is how you get a DOCA, that extra authentication stamp, if you will, or adjudication from the government. And it does translate into more value, sometimes just more traditional characteristics of the wine. So in this case, DOCA, but the Faustino 5, you know that if it says Rioja, that you know that it's primarily Tempranillo. Now this has a little bit of Mazuelo, another little grape from the region blended in, but if this were labeled in the US or in Australia or in Chile where they name by grape type, it would absolutely be named Tempranillo. And you'll see that detailed in the description on the channel there. So that if you see any interesting wine aspects that I've talked about, I'll detail those as best I can for you in the descriptive notes. But like I said, Rioja, you know it's Tempranillo because naming by region. And think of Burgundy, France. You cannot have the name Burgundy on the label unless if it's red, it's Pinot Noir. Burgundy, if it's white, Chardonnay. That's it. So very, very important distinction there. So again, as I've said before, when I'm opening a wine, foils can be any number of types of material. So I usually just take the whole foil off. Sometimes they'll just twist off and you just pull them off, but I like to avoid the chance of getting a foil cut. So I just take it off. And it's very, very clean that way too. And many of the corks now, because of that, have a really nice little schematic, whether they have their logo or their name. Let me put that. So I'll leave that foil cutter out, and then I'll start opening the wine that I end up cutting myself. So I put that down. Now, take the corkscrew, and that business end of the corkscrew, that really sharp point, and you want to get it down right. You want to just poke a hole right in the center of the cork. And if you can see that, poking that hole right there, and then get the corkscrew in there, just a little bit of a downward push. And what you want is you want to get that corkscrew so that it's parallel with the bottle. Once you get it embedded in there. There we go, my elbow hits my coffee, and I'll talk about the coffee in a second. I like to have the coffee as a palate calibrator before I taste the wine. It's a known flavor, so it takes my palate back down to ground zero, if you will, just an even playing field. So I know what to expect from that flavor, and it helps me evaluate the wine more clearly. So I usually do just a little bit up, just to nurse that cork up, because when it's first in there, it's gonna be a little bit tough to break that seal. So you do just a little bit, and then you can get the bottom of the corkscrew on there, and bring it right up, nice and gentle. And then you can even finish it by hand, just a little back and forth. There it is, beautiful. Now this is a real cork, so I'm gonna smell that cork. What I don't want is a corky smell. It sounds really strange to say cork shouldn't smell like cork. No, no, no. Cork for a wine should be neutral, or it should start to smell like, in this case, red grapes or red wine, some of the darker berry fruits. But otherwise, it should be just neutral, and that's good. If it smells like cork, I'm sorry, I have to say it, 9 times out of 10, if that cork on the wine side smells like cork, most likely your wine is corked. It's a TCA bacteria. It's not, harmful in any way. It just taints the flavor of the wine. So I'm going to taste this first without decanting it, no aeration. This is a 2013, so you figure 18 months in the bottle. It settles a little bit. It sits before they release it. So at the time of this filming, this has been in the bottle about 4 years. Beautiful color. Love having either a sleeve, a sheet of paper, or a napkin. Beautiful, just really deep. Now, I always think of Tempranillos a little bit like a Sangiovese, a little bit like Spain's version of Chianti, but in some cases it just is not. It's just it's much darker. It's somewhere between, for me, Pinot Noir and a nicely robust Grenache as far as color. Beautiful. I don't want to say garnet nose, but when you're talking wine flavors, just say garnet. Wait, garnet's a stone. So sometimes you mix color and aromatic, and all the senses start to go together. But it's kind of for me, it's kind of the magic that's wine. It makes wine more than just a beverage. It's artistic in it, and sometimes there's. And usually I save this for a friend, talking about a French wine, but it's just that expression, that je ne sais quoi. It's the I don't know what. You don't always have the right words, but I think that's the beauty of it. So I'm just loving this aromatic. This is a kind of wine, and maybe it's because the age in the bottle, also that extra 18 months that on American oak, there's some nice, just some really fun things coming out. I could sit here and smell this and just enjoy it that way. But let's taste it. So spit bucket, and then a squeegee of the tongue. So I don't want to just taste, swallow right away. Very nice. There's a little bit of sharpness, but not much. It's already very smooth. Now we're gonna take the other glass, and we're gonna aerate. Now if we aerate, amazing what this can do. And let's see if I can actually get close enough to the mic that you can hear this gurgling through here. Absolutely. So again, Bernoulli's principle, the act of the gravity and the inertia of that liquid moving, pulling oxygen right into it. Aging your wine really before you serve it. Already smoothed the finish. And it has a classic Tempranillo, bit of refreshing bean cherry-like tartness on the finish, but a kind of a deep black cherry. It's a beautiful wine. Easy. I could sip this without having food. It's so good. It's one of those wines. Faustino 5, Reserva Rioja, DOCA. Faustino. Beautiful, rich, robust, majestic Spanish name. Northwest Spain, Rioja. Cheers. Thanks again for joining me for this episode. You can see I had fun with it. Nice, full-bodied Reserva Tempranillo from Spain, the Faustino 5. Listen, there are 3 things here. Sip, subscribe, and share. Don't be afraid to leave a comment underneath. That's fun. We get some interaction going. It's excellent, and I'll take any suggestions. Also, leave me a wine that you might want me to talk about in a future episode. Until then, have fun with Faustino. Come back. Let's chat wine.